My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. While the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed, and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by 0.25 percentage point. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments.
So, like you heard, it's in. 25 basis points cut by the Federal Reserve in the last 24 hours. But, well, that's old news. What is coming next? Why is there such extreme volatility in the market? And, well, everyone told us we were going to the moon, right? Wrong. This is important. You need to see this video because I have some key data that is going to tell you what is coming next in the market and why this bullish 25 basis points cut is bigger than you think. So make sure you turn that notification bell on to all and you subscribe to the channel because we upload content every day about cryptocurrency. So with that being said, let's get into it. So, as you heard, Jerome Powell did cut the federal funds rate by 25 basis points, as was expected. I think it's important to reference. But what was the overall arching summary? What does it mean? And I guess what comes next in the market? Well, if we take the summary, he said this: unemployment rate has risen along with downside risks to employment. Okay, well, that's fine. Inflation has risen and remains somewhat elevated. Growth in the economic activity is moderated. Job creation is below the break-even rate, which is almost an admission that he is too late to cut rates. Remember, cutting rates in a really bullish market is all about jobs, and that was ultimately what he wanted. Near-term inflation expectations has moved up on tariffs. This is becoming less and less as a transitory thing. Effects on tariffs on the economy remain to be seen. This is the point he wants to make. And ultimately, the Fed was clearly forced to cut rates due to the weakening labor market. So what does that then mean that comes next? We got a 25 basis points cut. Lots of you asked in my live stream, well, what could be the next thing? Well, let's analyze a little bit of history. In fact, when the Fed has cut rates previous, when we've seen stocks or S&P 500 within 2% of its record highs, the actual S&P has rallied significantly over the next 12 months. Take, for example, in 2019, we actually got a rate cut of 25 basis points. The stock market then rallied for 21% over the course of the next year. You can see that in 1995. You can even go back as far as 1986, where exactly the same played out, and we saw a 28% move. Now, guess what? The S&P 500 breaking new all-time highs and a 25 basis points cut. Could we therefore see a stock market rally into 2026, which would drag the crypto market up as well as everything else? That is yet to be seen. But if history repeats itself, well, the reality is that we are in there. And by the way, just for measure, 20 out of 20 have done that. It is a 100% success rate. When we see rate cuts on bullish markets, we see another year of very, very strong momentum. And that could be why we saw something even crazier today: a statue of President Trump officially holding the Bitcoin coin in Washington, D.C. Now, no one's really kind of come out and spoke about it, but it's definitely out there. Now, again, if you look at the pictures you can see on your screen, I'm not sure this is a commission piece by Donald Trump, but it is interesting. And even if you look at it as a really bearish sentiment, well, it's kind of getting the word out. We'll take it. Donald Trump hopefully is going to pump this market like never before. Now, we also know that, well, Eric Trump is going big on Bitcoin as well. In fact, they just launched American Bitcoin. Will there be financial? He's looking pretty bullish. And he's talking right now on Bloomberg about how the banks are playing the game. Listen to this.
It took me 120 days to go through and know your customer, right? And you're sitting there saying, why? Why is it every week as a hospitality company? Right? I'm trying to get a wire out, or I'm waiting to receive a wire through the SWIFT system, where if I don't get it out by 5 o'clock, and by the way, even if you get it out at 5 o'clock, zero chance it's making there before Monday. You know, when you can transfer $500 million worth of Bitcoin from an iPhone to an iPhone, having a wallet address, you know, at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, you know, for no fees, for practically no fees. And that scares the big financial institution.
So modern day gold, calling it a liquid store of value that can be hedged against real estate and other assets. This is incredibly bullish. And when you've got, well, Eric Trump as well as many others looking to really pivot and capitalize on what this Bitcoin market's doing, then, well, you're only going to go higher. We've seen ETF volume spike once again. Treasury companies are back buying. And like we said, American Bitcoin launched as the Trump family continues their onslaught into the cryptocurrency market. But that wasn't the biggest news of the day. In fact, the biggest news of the day came later on when the SEC approved generic listing standards for commodity-based trust shares. What does this mean? Basically, they've paved the way to list every single ETF at once and take away any of the regulatory framework that slows down individual assessments of ETFs. This could ignite the biggest ETF run we have seen. And well, the reality is I've been talking about this now for a few months. By approving these generic listing standards, we're ensuring that our capital markets remain the best place in the world to engage in cutting-edge innovation. This was coming from Paul Atkins. He went on to say the approval helps to maximize investor choice and foster innovation by streamlining the listing process and reducing barriers to access digital asset products within America's trusted capital markets. It's about as bullish as you could possibly get. So let's break down really quickly what we got. Rate cuts, the Trump family buying more Bitcoin than we've ever seen before. And we also get generic listing standards, allowing ETFs to basically fast track their way into the capital markets in the US. Well, this is a pretty freaking bullish 24 hours. And all these people that have been telling you for ages the market's going to zero, I can't wait until they all pivot. You cannot deny right now what is going on in this market. And I think we've got way more upside. September playing out exactly as expected. And think about this, Bitcoin is about 6K from all-time high. We could definitely see BTC once again retesting those upper ranges. It could even come as soon as this weekend, as markets look to be heading into this weekend pretty bullish. So a pretty good day, a pretty good few days, and certainly a pretty good month so far for September. But down in the comments, let me know what you think. How bullish are you on ETFs? And who do you think lists their ETF first? Is it AVAX, Solana, or are we going to see an XRP ETF come first? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, we do have our full free Discord server. If you want to get some premium access to alpha calls as well as trade alerts every single day, then become a channel member and you get free access to that Discord. So until next time, thanks for watching. Notification bells on, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.